What's going on, Gator Nation? Nick Delatorre here with Corey Bender. A rapid reaction to a new commitment from athlete, safety, Josiah Davis. The Florida Gators are back on the recruiting trail and get a commitment today. Corey, what do we need to know about Josiah?
Yeah, he's a do-it-all athlete for his high school. He's a kid that had, 70 tackles, 1 sack, an interception. He had a lot of production on defense, but he's a kid that had over 1,000 yards on offense as well, 22 touchdowns. And I think the biggest thing here is 7 as a kickoff returner. I mean, regardless of what classification you're in, that's a big-time athlete, a kid who can, rack up 7 receiving, return touchdowns. So I think with Josiah Davis, he's 6'1", 185 pounds. I think he's more of a raw prospect in terms of his overall skill set on defense. But when you watch him, he's a bigger athlete. I think he's a legit 6'1", 85 from what they list him at. Very aggressive. A kid that likes to get his nose dirty on defense. Shows the ball skills as well. He plays a lot of quarterback for his high school, so he's not a natural receiver by any means, but he knows how to take advantage of that size, get vertical, and break up passes downfield. So I think a lot of people look at his ranking, and understandably so, but he's a guy that's kind of flown under the radar who's going to receive a pretty sizable bump in the rankings here soon by On3. So it's a guy I think more fans will start to like more and more as film starts to get out to all the fan base.
And who has kind of led this recruiting battle, and what has been, I guess, his timeline in terms of visiting schools and other schools that he's either worked out for, or where does this commitment stand with Florida? It's obviously very early in the cycle right now.
Yeah, so Florida offered him about 3 weeks ago, and Florida was the leader immediately. He visited a few times before, in years past, but he wasn't a legit target at that time. Didn't have an offer, really worked out. It just kind of visited campus and went through the camps. But he's a guy that, Florida beat out Tennessee, NC State, Kentucky, Louisville. Those were some of the other big offers. So there was definitely high major interest. It wasn't just Florida who, took a waiver on a kid who has a lot of upside. So a lot of other schools were in the mix as well. Jay Bateman is his go-to contact. Those conversations have been taking place for almost 2 years now, right when actually he got on the staff and when he was at North Carolina before. So there's a little bit of familiarity once that offer was extended. Joe Hamilton's been involved as well. It's a kid that Florida really likes. I know people looked at the offer at the time, were like, well, is he a plan B type guy? There's a big safety board for Florida. And Florida, they've been, from what I was told by multiple sources, is they believe he has a very high ceiling. They're kind of all in on him once the offer was made available. And, after him naming Florida the leader before the 2 visits that took place in March, and then him announcing his commitment timeline, it was a no-brainer. Initially, he told me December, and I kind of told our subscribers, I'd be surprised if he waits that long. I think it's one of those situations where, Florida talks to him and they want to get him in the class. They have a top 3 class right now, generate more and more momentum, have a lot of these other kids see these commitments and see how highly ranked Florida is. So I think all in all, when you looked at the big picture, him committing to Florida was pretty much a no-brainer if you've been following his recruitment.
A lot of this is keeping momentum. Your guy, Derek Lagway, might have a private jet or some NIL deal with a company because he is in town a lot, was just in town again. And a bunch of these guys, Corey, will be back in town for the spring game. I know that you've got a list growing, and we'll have that at Gators Online. But assuming Josiah would be one of those guys, you like to have your commits around for Friday Night Lights and for the spring game. It'll be interesting to see if he comes to both of those. You've touched on it a little bit, but as we close out here, where do you project him playing? Obviously an athlete, he's played safety. A lot of his film shows him down in the box as a pass rusher. Has played receiver as well. Where do you think he ends up when he gets to campus?
Florida likes him at safety. They've mentioned, hey, moving him around a little bit, but he's one of those guys that has kind of a pure projection. And safety, that's where the staff saw him from the get-go. He's been fine with that. And, watching his film, there's a lot of raw natural ability, good size, like I noted before. I think he has a frame that should be able to add quality weight as time goes on. So I think safety is the best thing for him. I could see him obviously at nickel a little bit as well. But I think with Florida, he'll definitely be a secondary player, and it might depend on how much bigger he gets over the next couple of years.
Hey, and there's no better place than Gators Online to get your recruiting information. If you haven't subscribed yet, click the link down in the description. Check us out. It's an exciting time with spring football going on. A lot of recruiting news happening. And then Florida baseball, number 3 in the country. So for Corey Bender, I'm Nick Delatorre. Thanks for joining.